Right, what I'm going to do next is turn up the third axle tube, which goes in between the two horn plates. And then there's the bearings which fit on this side, bolt through the flange on there. So let's get on. Try and mount that in the lathe. Square up the inside sides first. Right, I've turned up the little ends. Got it in the lathe as centre as I could. I don't think it's too bad when you start. What I'll do now is turn this end down to size, square this in, and then what I'll do is I'll flip it over so I'm working here. But it's running pretty true. It's not bad. Right, I've turned the flanges to the right diameter, cleaned up the inside corners, and I've just squared off the ends. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to mount that right into the chuck. Get it all centered up, and then I've got to as it is, I can face that off to the right thickness there, because that's got to be 4.5 inches overall. So while it's set up there, I'll machine this face to the right thickness, and then I'll turn it around, machine that face before I mount that right in the chuck to bore through. Right, I've machined this side down 1/16 of an inch. I'll just turn it around in the lathe, and then I'll take 1/16 off of there, and that should be right, 4 3/4. Right, I've machined both ends. Check the measurement there. 4 3/4, spot on. Right, the next thing, I'm going to mount this end right into the chuck, because that's all square now, so that'll be bearing down on that flat face. Tighten it up nicely. Get that turned off, and then start boring through there. That's the next job. Right, I've faced that off, taken that stub off, I've centre drilled that, and I'm going to start boring through. I haven't got a steady to put on the lathe, so I'm going to carefully bore through, and I'll go halfway or just over halfway, then I'll turn it around and do it again. Start with a small drill, build up to the larger drill, and then use a boring bar. Right, I've bored right through this tube. Nice slack fit for the axle. But what I've got to do now, when I come to turn up the bearings, I've got to cut that in half, one for each end. I've got to open that up to 7/8 of an inch. When I turn this up, that'll be turned to 7/8 of an inch with a 3/4 hole through it for the actual axle, or the third shaft, should I say. And then that slips inside there to make a little bit of a sleeve. So the actual bearing will be with the 1/8 of an inch flange on the outside of the horn plate going in there. It's going to be about an inch long altogether. So that'll be 1/8 of an inch on the outside of the horn plate, the 1/8 for the horn plate, and then 3/4 of an inch inside there. So let's get the boring bar and open that up. Right, I've bored out that end. 7/8 of an inch, perfect. Now I'll turn it over and do the other end. Right, that's the third axle machined up. You can see I've opened both ends up to 7/8 of an inch. That fits in there. Hang on, I'll just get that in. It's in there perfect. The third shaft will go through there. So the next thing now is to do the bearings, which will bolt on the outside, but they'll slip in through that hole into the tube as well. So the actual bearing will be an inch long from here. That's the next job now. Right, I've done one end, rounded it off. I've just rounded it off and flattened the back out. What I'll do is I'll round this off, flatten that back out so the ends are all parallel and flat. I'm not worried about this at the minute. And then what I'll do is I'll cut that in half. And then finish turning up the two separate parts to size. That's got to fit inside the tube. And then that'll have to be 1 inch thick, 1/8 of an inch thick, with a 3/4 inch bore through it for the third shaft, which I'll use a reamer for that after drilling it just under size. So let's just start turning that down. Let's have a look at that. A little bit more. Right, I'll just face that off a little bit. I'll leave it on the centre, because anything I leave in there will fit in the hole in the chuck like this end. That's that end flattened off. So now what I'll do is I'll cut that in half to have the two separate bearings then. Right, I'm just turning that down to size to fit inside the tube. So I've turned that down, that fits in there lovely. Now what I'll do is I will bore the hole for the shaft going through, and then I'll be able to turn that around and just turn that down so it's the same diameter as this. Now I've got to put the reamer in it. Right, that's the reaming done. Right, I've just tried that on the shaft. That's a nice fit in there. Beautiful. Now put it back in the chuck and turn that down to 1/8 of an inch. And that down to the right size diameter now. Right, that's one bearing done. Obviously the horn plate will be sandwiched between that. So let's get the other end done. Right, that's both bearings done. That little gap there would be where the horn plates fit in. Now the next thing will be to put these on the milling machine and do a pitch circle diameter with 4 holes, the same as what are in the horn plates. I'll show you. Yes, so what I've got to do is put these in the milling machine and get the same pitch circle diameter as those 4 holes to drill through, and the same on the tube, and then they'll bolt through both parts on both ends. But we can see, look, with that on there, just push that through there. There we are. That will be the 3rd shaft going through the tube and the bearings. So let's get these drilled. Right, I've got the tube clamped onto the milling machine with a centre drill in it, all centred up, and I've got a 4-hole pitch circle diameter, the same as the horn plates, so I can start drilling that. Right, I'm just putting a centre drill there. Right, now we'll do the next one. Now I'm putting the right size hole through there. Right, that's one. Right, that's one end done. Now I've got to turn it over and do the other end, but making sure I get these square with the milling machine. Right, that's both ends of the tube drilled. Now I'll get the vise on here and set up for the bearings. Right, I've set the bearing up in the vise on the milling machine, all centered up. And using the same pitch circle diameter, I'll put these 4 holes in. Right, so that's the first hole. Just putting a center drill in there first. Now the next one. Zero that over to there. Right, the next one. Then we'll do the next one. Right, one. Right, that's that bearing done. I'll just do the other one. Right, that's both bearings drilled. I'll just bolt it in there. Right, that's the third shaft bolted in. It's a good tight fit there, but that'll bed in later on. I might put a little bit of paste in there and grind it in, but not too much. I've also started boring out the axle tube. I've still got to drill the ends there, and I'm waiting for the bearings now. They only sent me the castings they had, like these tubes and these bearings. They've still got to send me the castings for the first and second shaft there. Right, please subscribe to my channel and join me as I build a 2-inch scale Fowler Showman's traction engine.